Welcome to the Deep Dive, the place where we sift through the dense, the complex, and sometimes the frankly surprising source material so you don't have to. Today, we are cracking open the philosophical blueprint of, well, one of the most globally ambitious religious movements of the 20th century. We're diving into excerpts from a really key 1979 address by Reverend Sun Myung Moon. It's titled The Universal Axis of True Love. And this isn't just a spiritual sermon,
Yeah.
it's more like a detailed operational manual for his world-changing mission. So our mission today for you is to really unpack the core ideology here. We're looking at this concept of a fixed, universal center, how the singular true love is defined, and the exceptionally demanding mission he laid out for his members.
The Moonies, as they were often called.
Exactly. And this is all from his perspective back in 1979.
Then we should say right at the top, it's highly charged material, it's deeply philosophical, and it sits at the center of some significant historical controversy.
Right.
So our job here isn't to endorse or critique it. We're acting as impartial analysts, just extracting the logical structure behind a movement that was aiming for, really, total global transformation.
We're studying the mindset.
Yes, exactly, at a foundational moment.
Okay, let's unpack this. And surprisingly, we're starting with a technical, almost cultural look at communication. That's where he begins his critique, the limits of language. He kicks things off by talking about this deep gap between cultures, saying that getting even 75% accuracy when translating from one language to another is virtually impossible.
And he doesn't just leave it there. He singles out English for a very, very specific critique.
What's his issue with English?
Well, he calls it an impossible language, one with many exceptions. But the real flaw in his view is spiritual. He says it's not the best language for conveying the spiritual element of life, especially when you put it up against Korean.
That's a huge claim. I mean, especially if you're trying to build a global movement where English is often the go-to.
It is. But he sees Korean as intrinsically superior for what he calls the universal dispensation.
The universal dispensation. What does he mean by that?
It's basically God's grand plan for a new global era. And he argues the Korean alphabet is uniquely scientific and modern, that its 24 phonetic elements can reproduce any sound. He says Korean has a profound taste to it.
A profound taste.
Yeah, that it has the nuance needed for these deep spiritual truths that he argues English lacks.
So the language itself is a tool prepared by God. Okay, so let's talk about the people using that tool, the members. He defines what a Moonie is almost by what they are not.
It's a complete rejection of individualism. He's very explicit. They're not seeking fame, reputation, fun, drugs, sensual experience, academic honor.
More money?
Or money. They can't write love letters. They can't date. It's a total denial of what he sees as these self-serving materialistic trends.
And the cost of that denial is, wow, it's an extraordinary social alienation. He says members face ridicule, that their own families think they've made a huge mistake. And there's that one truly bizarre detail he throws in. He says, quote, waiters and waitresses practically expect Moonies to eat with their noses instead of their mouths.
And that single line, it just reveals so much about the stigma they were expected to endure. He frames it as a necessary kind of preparation, and it extends to their worship, too.
How so?
He points out that their sanctuaries have no chairs. They sit on the hard floor. It's this immediate physical rejection of comfort, and that's the prerequisite for the whole mission.
This intense self-denial seems like just the training ground for tackling what he saw as this chaotic, centerless Western society, which I guess leads us right into his diagnosis of the world's disorder.
Starting with a very sharp critique of American individualism.
Yeah, he says Americans are too individualistic, that they ignore the nation, society, family, all to chase some small single target.
Right. Money or honor or what he calls fun and carnal pleasure.
And he defines that as being inherently flawed because it contradicts the well-being of the whole.
He uses that powerful tree analogy.
The tree analogy, right? The individual is a leaf, but the leaf can't just ignore the roots in the trunk.
Which represent family and society. He says a rootless way of life prevails here in America.
But doesn't that idea, doesn't it fundamentally clash with the whole Western concept of individual autonomy, where the leaf is supposed to have its own value?
In his logic, that autonomy is the source of the chaos. He says, look at the universe, the solar systems, even a day, it all follows a fixed axis and order.
Right.
And disaster happens when things leave their positions, when its tail tries to argue with the head, as he puts it. So to him, that Western pursuit of autonomy is a guaranteed path to disorder.
Which brings us to the core question of identity. What should that fixed center be, the soul or the body?
He says Americans today overwhelmingly choose the body, physical pleasure, and that leads to the crisis. Since there's no fixed center, they're all just destined to bump into each other and invite self-destruction.
So if we connect all this, the social chaos he sees is proof that his universal principle is needed.
Exactly. The disorder consumerism, family breakdown, it's all empirical evidence from his viewpoint that they need to establish this one unchanging axis. And that axis is what he calls true love.
Which brings us to defining the thing itself. So if God is the universal center, he asks, what is God's center?
And the answer have to involve this harmonious relationship between God's love and man's love. So the goal is to find one single, all-encompassing love.
Something that satisfies both the 5 physical senses and the 5 spiritual senses.
All right.
Can you just quickly unpack what he means by spiritual senses there?
In this worldview, they're about the soul's direct connection to God, to the spirit world. It's the ability to sense truth, goodness, beauty, love on a divine level.
Okay.
So true love is when your physical joy and your soul's spiritual satisfaction become one single unified thing.
And the intensity he uses to describe this love it's incredible. It's almost physical.
Yeah.
He says it's so powerful that if you try to leave, you're pulled right back. The mind and body become the same burning crimson red.
Here's where it gets really interesting. He uses this powerful, and I have to say, slightly jarring analogy, the bullet of love.
Yes.
He claims that when members are united in this love, no power, not even, and he says this, even the power of God can stop them.
And we have to pause on that analogy. A normal bullet destroys something.
Right.
This one, he says, does the opposite. The bullet of love penetrates a person or a society, and instead of pain, it causes joy. It's an irresistible unifying force.
And he uses this idea of total commitment to reframe the accusations they were facing at the time about brainwashing.
It's a brilliant rhetorical move. He addresses it head on. He says, we're not brainwashed. We are all just patients suffering from the disease of true love.
He turns the criticism into a kind of spiritual validation. Precisely. The love is so total that outsiders, these centerless observers, they can only see it as coercion. But from the inside, it's the only beneficial spiritual illness.
And that overpowering love is the engine for their ultimate goal, universal unification, which he explains with this strategy of the ropes.
Right, the ropes. He says every member has these complicated ropes attached to them. Individual, family, tribal, national, world.
It sounds overwhelming.
It does, but he offers a radical simplification. Just focus on the highest goal, saving the whole world.
So you aim for the biggest rope, the world line?
Exactly. And it automatically takes care of the lesser goals, family, nation, because the world contains everything else. And that's the justification for a life of really radical sacrifice. You always sacrifice the lesser for the greater.
And this principle of world love is how he justifies overcoming historical divisions, especially race. He says because the focus is the world, it is nothing for white people to love black people.
And that leads directly to one of the church's most famous and controversial practices, interracial marriage.
He saw it as the solution to, in his words, the worst problem of history. Specifically, black and white animosity in America.
Yes, he claims that after matching 705 couples, many volunteered for interracial marriage, and that the black community began to see him as their champion.
And this wasn't just an American project, right? He talks about tackling the 3 great barriers in Europe.
National boundaries, language, and marriage customs. He gives that specific example of England, where out of over 300 couples, only 2 were matched British to British.
Oh.
The goal was to just forcefully break down that national insularity. And all of this, he identifies a clear enemy.
The communists.
Yes, who he accuses of manipulating racial division.
Yeah.
So the Unification Church, by promoting unity, becomes their natural archenemy.
Then he uses this wonderful cultural metaphor to sum it all up, the chopsticks.
It's a great metaphor.
Western philosophy, he says, is like a cane, straightforward and pointed. Oriental philosophy is abstract, rounded, mystic, and God uses 2 long chopsticks.
One Western, one Eastern.
And his mission, coming from the east to the west, is to clean the Western chopstick.
He says he found it rusty, with rough edges and metal spurs on it. That Western focus on legalism, individualism, materialism, it needs to be refined.
So that God can use it at this great banquet for all races and cultures.
Mm-hmm.
So what did that cleaning process actually look like for a Western member?
Total cultural immersion. They had to learn Oriental customs, like using chopsticks, like sitting on a hard floor even when their backs were aching. That pain is the purification.
to prepare them to be what he called future diplomats, people who could mix with anyone because they'd transcended their own culture.
Right, they were being forged into world citizens.
Which brings us to the end of the speech, this bridge to eternity and the ultimate trust placed in the members.
He describes himself as the support for the bridge between heaven and earth, and his followers have to hang on and cross over.
And the ticket to cross?
The permit, he calls it. It's just a demonstrated statement that you practice love. And crucially, he says that ticket is only issued in one place. Once you know about the bridge, you cross like a bullet. No hesitation.
To cross, they have to abandon the very American desire for privacy. He says it flat out. A Moonie has no private life, only a public one.
Ministering every single moment. That total public life is what makes their love elastic, what makes the family gate wide enough for the whole world to come dancing in.
And he ends with a staggering prediction that the trust placed in them is the final one from God, the spirit world, and all of history.
He says soon, leaders in Korea, Japan, America, they will all recognize that the Unification Church is the only hope.
A truly staggering claim, and his final command to his followers is to be giants who cause good trouble and controversy in the world.
To act desperately every single day.
So after this deep dive, the key takeaway for me is this total rejection of modern, centerless individualism. It's framed as rootless, self-destructive, and in its place is this demanding, all-encompassing form of true love as the universal access for everything.
So what does this all mean? I think this source material reveals an incredibly focused, disciplined worldview that is centered completely on world salvation. It's an ideology that actively tries to dismantle huge historical barriers, race, nationalism, by demanding members sacrifice everything, their desires, their culture, their private lives, for this single totalizing center.
And it shows us that movements we often see just through their social impact have these incredibly detailed philosophical structures underneath it all, defining their purpose and the absolute depth of commitment they require. The source emphasizes that once you've tasted this unifying love, even if someone physically drags you away, your mind and soul will be straining to get back to that axis. So given that description of this overpowering devotion, what does it really mean to pursue a central axis that fundamentally eliminates all need for personal boundaries or even a private life? That's the question we'll leave you with until our next deep dive.